He Grand Hall of Justice aboard the Galactic Tribunal station. Eternal verdict thrummed with the tense energy of thousands of delegates from across known space. I adjusted my breathing apparatus and blinked through my third eyelid, unimpressed by the tribunal's usual display of excess. They always loved their theatrics. As senior chronicler Vex Talon of the Archivist Guild, I'd witnessed countless species brought before the tribunal. Some begged, others threatened, a few even tried bribery. But humans were something else entirely. "All rise for the High Counselors of the Galactic Tribunal," announced Sub-Chancellor Prell, his voice amplified across the chamber through the translation grid. I remained seated, one of the perks of being an official observer. My species, the Zith Carrera, were renowned for our flawless memory and impartial record-keeping. We were respected, feared, and, best of all, left alone to do our work. 7 High Counselors drifted into the chamber on gravity platforms, draped in ceremonial robes worth more than the GDP of a developing world. Leading them was High Chancellor Quarren Voss, a Malfurion infamous for his ruthless efficiency and thinly veiled disdain for non-spacefaring species. "Bring forth the human representative," Voss commanded, forearms raised in the formal posture of accusation. The massive doors at the chamber's far end slid open, and a lone human woman entered. Ambassador Daphne Rivera. She moved with the ease of someone walking into a cafe, not into the seat of galactic judgment. A ripple of whispers spread across the assembly. Many had expected a delegation, perhaps military leaders or planetary officials. Instead, they sent one woman, dressed simply in a dark blue suit that seemed intentionally modest. "Ambassador Rivera," Voss began, his tone thick with disdain. "You stand before this tribunal as Earth's representative and will receive sanctions for your species' violations of galactic law." Rivera smiled, not nervously, nor diplomatically. It was the kind of smile a parent gives a child who said something foolish but funny. "Thank you for the warm welcome, High Chancellor," she said, her voice calm and clear. "Before we begin, I'd like to clarify, I'm not here to receive sanctions. I'm here to have a conversation." Voss's upper left eye twitched, a known sign of irritation among Malfurions. "This is not a negotiation, Ambassador. Your species has committed 47 confirmed breaches of galactic law in just 3 standard cycles since contact. This is unprecedented." 48, actually, Rivera corrected. "Your records missed our mining operation on Proxima Centauri's 4th moon last month. It's a common oversight." I nearly choked on my nutrient paste. Did she just correct the High Chancellor and confess to another violation? "You admit to these infractions?" asked Counselor Janeville, her crystalline form shimmering with visible surprise. "Of course," Rivera replied with a shrug. "We did all of it. The question isn't if we did, it's whether they should be considered violations at all." The chamber erupted. Delegates from dozens of species shouted their outrage, some in dialects so obscure they strained the translation matrix. I scrambled to keep up in my notes. This was shaping up to be the most fascinating tribunal in centuries. Voss slammed his staff into the platform, sending a shockwave of silence through the room. "Explain yourself, Ambassador," he demanded. Rivera nodded and began pacing a slow circle, hands clasped behind her back. "Let's start with violation number 23, unauthorized modification of standard communication protocols. What we actually did was increase the quantum relay network's efficiency by 32%. We submitted the specs to the Technology Oversight Committee, but they were, how did they put it? Placed under review pending proper authorization. That was 18 months ago." Counselor Drell, the reptilian tech specialist, leaned forward. "Proper testing protocols must be followed. You can't just tamper with systems linking thousands of worlds." "And yet," Rivera countered, "the upgrades work flawlessly. Half the commercial sector has adopted them unofficially because they're demonstrably better. No failures, no data loss, just improved performance." I glanced around the chamber. Delegates were shifting uneasily. The human had a point, and everyone knew it. "Number 17, Rivera continued, her voice gaining confidence, "unauthorized seeding and expansion within restricted parameters of the Tiety system. She gestured to the holographic display that materialized before her, navigating it with effortless precision. The regulations limit development to planets with a habitability rating of 0, 7 or higher. We developed a planetoid with a 0, 5 rating, and turned it into a thriving colony of 2 million inhabitants. Using prohibited terraforming techniques, interjected Counselor Graff, the Chamber's staunch environmental protection advocate. Through innovative terraforming techniques, Rivera corrected smoothly. Techniques that had 1/3 the ecological footprint of your approved methods and achieved full transformation in half the time. We submitted the research. It was once again placed under review. Ambassador, Voss cut in, visibly trying to reassert control. These regulations exist to ensure the safety and stability of all galactic citizens. Your species' reckless disregard for established protocols undermines the very foundation of interstellar governance. Rivera stopped pacing and turned to face him squarely. Does it though? Or does it challenge a bureaucracy so used to its own inertia that it mistakes progress for peril? A low murmur rolled through the chamber. I noticed junior diplomats scribbling notes with uncharacteristic urgency. This human was proving dangerous, very dangerous. Let me be clear, Rivera said, raising her voice slightly for the first time. Humanity respects the need for laws. What we don't respect is stagnation masquerading as caution. Every violation listed against us has resulted in measurable improvement. Not one has caused harm. That is not yours to determine. Voss roared, all four arms now raised in the tribunal's highest gesture of authority. The tribunal has preserved peace for 12,000 years through careful, deliberate governance. And that's commendable, Rivera nodded. Truly. But the universe doesn't stand still, and neither do we. She turned her attention to the assembly at large, and I found myself unconsciously leaning forward, caught up in her audacity. Many of you have privately expressed admiration for human innovation. Some have even adopted our methods unofficially. A few have entered alternative trade arrangements that sidestep tribunal controls. A nervous shuffle passed through the crowd as several delegates abruptly became fascinated by the ceiling. We understand your dilemma, Rivera said gently. You're caught between the comfort of the known and the promise of what's possible. This is outrageous, sputtered Voss. You stand accused of violations, and your response is to accuse the tribunal? Of what exactly? Rivera asked. Caution? Fear? Or rather, fear dressed up as caution? The silence that followed was thunderous. I realized I had stopped documenting and hastily resumed. This hearing would be dissected for centuries. Chancellor Voss, Rivera said, her tone softening, members of the tribunal, I offer an alternative. Instead of punishing Earth for innovation, collaborate with us. Establish a regulatory sandbox, an environment where new ideas can be tested quickly, safely, and with oversight. What? Asked Counselor Zenva. A controlled space, Rivera explained, where innovation is guided, not stifled. Successes can be fast-tracked. Failures contained without consequence. That is not how the tribunal operates, Voss said sharply, though I noticed his upper right eye twitching now, in tandem with the left. There are procedures, he insisted. Traditions, precedents. All of which served you well, in a slower era, Rivera said. But the pace of change is accelerating, not just because of humanity, though we've helped. The universe itself is evolving. The real question is whether the tribunal will evolve with it, or be left behind. Are you threatening us, Ambassador? Voss asked, his voice a dangerous whisper. Rivera blinked, almost genuinely surprised. Not at all. I'm offering partnership. Humanity doesn't want to dismantle the tribunal, we want to reinvigorate it. She tapped her datapad, and a new hologram appeared at the center of the chamber, a sleek, modular orbital structure. This, she said, is a design for an innovation hub, neutral space, joint oversight. A new way forward. Transparent processes, rapid testing, and implementation. Rivera's voice was steady. The hub would be open to all tribunal member species, not just humans. I watched as dozens of delegates leaned in, captivated by the rotating hologram and the wealth of technical detail it projected into the air. "Ambassador," said Counselor Drell slowly, "while this proposal is intriguing, it does not resolve the matter before us. Your species has violated established law. There must be consequences." "Agreed," Rivera nodded. "So let's talk about consequences. I propose that Earth commits substantial resources to establishing this innovation hub under full tribunal oversight. In addition, we will provide technical training to any world wishing to participate." "You propose to answer for violations by creating more opportunities to violate?" Voss asked, incredulous. "I propose to answer for innovation by building a framework for responsible innovation," Rivera replied, unfazed. "One that benefits everyone, not just humanity." The chamber erupted into a flurry of low conversation. I could see several counselors break into side discussions, their expressions shifting between skepticism and reluctant intrigue. Rivera simply stood in place, composed and unbothered, while the galaxy's most powerful beings deliberated her proposal, and, by extension, Earth's future. After several long minutes, Voss raised one hand, a gesture calling for silence. "The Council will recess to consider this unusual proposal," he said begrudgingly. "Ambassador Rivera will remain under tribunal security. This session is adjourned for 3 standard hours." As the delegates began filing out, many glanced over their shoulders at the lone human still standing in the center of the chamber. I began packing up my equipment, but curiosity got the better of me. Instead of leaving, I approached. Rivera was now seated at a small table, calmly reviewing data on her pad. An attendant had provided her with water and a light snack, neither of which seemed to interest her. "Ambassador," I said, announcing myself, "Vex Talon, Senior Chronicler. May I ask you a question, off the record?" She looked up, studying me with those strange human eyes. Just 2 of them, but sharp and unsettling in their intensity. "There's no such thing as off the record with Azith Carrera," she said with a knowing smile. "But go ahead." "You came alone," I said. "No advisors. No security detail. No legal counsel." Her smile deepened slightly. "What makes you think I'm alone?" Before I could press her for clarification, a tribunal security officer appeared at my side to escort me away. As I walked off, I turned back to see Rivera sipping from her water container, calm and centered, like someone who already knew exactly how this would end. And as a chronicler who had documented the rise and fall of empires, I felt the unmistakable pull of a new chapter forming. The story of humanity, I realized, was just beginning. The 3-hour recess stretched into 5, then 7. By the 9th hour, the Grand Hall of Justice no longer resembled a court. It felt like a spectator arena. Delegates who had previously departed returned with colleagues. Junior diplomats with no official reason to be present suddenly had pressing matters to attend to. Even the normally reserved Quillian trade representatives passed nutrient packets among themselves like snacks at a performance. And through it all, Ambassador Rivera remained at her small table. Occasionally she made notes. Sometimes she simply sat with her eyes closed, as if meditating. Not once did she display any hint of stress or concern. Using my Archivist Guild credentials, I secured a closer position near the central floor. Official documentation, after all, required optimal angles. Or so I told myself. "She looks so calm," murmured a voice beside me. I turned to see Jorel Pax, a rising diplomat from the Andorian Confederacy. If it were my species on trial, I'd be shedding my outer dermis from the stress. "Humans exhibit unusual stress responses," I replied, striving to maintain professional neutrality despite my own fascination. "Some actually perform better under pressure. They're ancient warriors. Some of them laughed before battle." "Laughed?" Pax's facial tendrils curled in disbelief. "That's disturbing." Before I could respond, the lighting in the chamber dimmed and shifted to formal session mode. Conversations ceased as a low hum signaled the High Counselor's return. They did not re-enter with the unified choreography of their earlier entrance. Some floated briskly, others more slowly, weighed down by the gravity of deliberation. Chancellor Voss's gravity platform wobbled slightly as it settled, an unintentional sign of distraction among Malthurans. This tribunal session will now reconvene, Sub-Chancellor Prell announced, though with noticeably less grandeur than before. Ambassador Rivera rose. She adjusted her jacket, walked to the center of the hall, and offered the tribunal a slight bow. A gesture of respect, but not submission. "Ambassador," began Voss, his voice now carefully measured, "the Council has deliberated on both your proposal and your violations. We have reached a consensus." The chamber fell so silent I could hear the faint hiss of atmospheric adjusters recalibrating overhead. "While your suggestion for an innovation hub holds merit," Voss continued, "it cannot negate the fact that Earth has willfully disregarded established law. There must be consequences." Rivera gave a single nod. Her expression remained unreadable. "Therefore," Voss intoned, "the tribunal rules as follows. Earth will face trade restrictions on one class of technology exports for a period of one standard cycle. Additionally, all human expansion efforts will require pre-approval for the next 3 cycles." A murmur rippled through the crowd, startled, confused. These were surprisingly lenient sanctions given the scope of Earth's violations. I turned to observe Rivera's response, expecting at least a flicker of relief. Instead, her eyes had gone cold. "Is that your final ruling, Chancellor?" she asked evenly. "Mine." Voss blinked, all 4 eyes at once, a Malthurian expression of supreme confidence. "It is fair. It is proportionate." "Then I'm afraid," Rivera said softly, "I must decline." The murmurs turned into gasps. Decline? No one declined a tribunal ruling. It wasn't just audacious, it was unthinkable. "You cannot decline a ruling of this body." Voss thundered, his voice rising in outrage. "These sanctions are binding." "They would be," Rivera agreed calmly, "if Earth recognized the tribunal's authority in these matters. But we don't." Pandemonium broke out. Delegates erupted into shouting, some in disbelief, others in fury. Security drones shifted into active posture. I scrambled to recalibrate my recording device, capturing what would surely become one of the most studied moments in galactic history. Voss slammed his ceremonial staff into the platform, shockwaves echoing to re-establish order. "You signed the Articles of Membership when Earth joined the galactic community," he bellowed. "Those articles explicitly acknowledge the tribunal's jurisdiction." "We signed a modified version," Rivera said, her tone almost sympathetic. "If you check the actual document Earth submitted, not the standard template your administrative AI filed, you'll find we included specific exemptions regarding technological innovation and colonial development." "Impossible!" cried Councillor Drell, scandalized. "No modifications are permitted in the articles." "Incorrect," Rivera replied smoothly, activating her datapad. "There's no prohibition on modifications. There's just no procedure for them. So we added an appendix, submitted it alongside the main agreement. Your system processed it as part of the complete document." A holographic projection sprang to life, displaying Earth's signed Articles of Membership, with a clearly attached supplemental document detailing exemptions. "This is," Voss stammered, "this is procedural manipulation." "This," Rivera countered, "is careful reading of your own rules. Something I highly recommend more species attempt. You might be surprised what you find." I couldn't help myself. A short, incredulous laugh escaped my lips before I stifled it. Several diplomats turned to glare, but I wasn't the only one. Many delegates were visibly struggling to maintain composure. "You find this amusing, chronicler?" asked Councillor V, her crystalline form pulsing with irritation. "I find it historically significant," I said, recovering my professional tone. "In 12,000 years, no one has ever challenged the tribunal's procedural foundations." "Because it's unthinkable," Voss snapped. "The tribunal is the bedrock of galactic peace. If every species exploited legal loopholes, then perhaps," Rivera interrupted, "the tribunal must evolve." Which brings me back to my original point. The universe is changing. The real question is whether your governance will change with it, or be left behind. She stepped forward, and I saw it in her posture, not defiance, but unwavering resolve. Earth does not seek to undermine the tribunal, she said. We value stability, but we also value progress. The sanctions you've proposed would punish both. You cannot simply opt out of consequences, said Councillor Grath, though the fire of his usual environmental zealotry had dimmed. We're not, Rivera replied gently. We're proposing alternative consequences. Ones that benefit everyone. She gestured again, and the Innovation Hub reappeared in holographic form, now accompanied by projected schematics of advanced technologies. The Innovation Hub is just the beginning. Earth is prepared to share breakthrough research, technologies in environmental restoration, medical science, sustainable energy. Solutions that could assist worlds still struggling with pollution, disease, and resource depletion. Rivera turned once more to address the full assembly. Her voice was calm, but it carried an unmistakable intensity. Many of you represent planets facing these very challenges. The Tribunal's cautious approach has meant that viable solutions often move too slowly to reach the people who need them most. We are offering a faster path. Across the chamber, I saw delegates exchanging looks, some skeptical, but many nodding. Even species historically aligned with strict tribunal orthodoxy were listening intently. This human wasn't just delivering a defense, she was changing the game. This is blackmail, Voss spat, his voice sharp with accusation. You are attempting to divide the tribunal by appealing directly to member worlds. This is cooperation, Rivera answered, her tone unwavering. We are offering partnership, not dominance. She paused, then, with a gentleness that caught even me off guard, added, Chancellor, I understand your concern. For millennia, the tribunal has been the guardian of galactic stability, and I respect that. You fear that rapid change might lead to chaos. That's a legitimate worry. The admission visibly stunned Voss. His upper arms dropped slightly from their rigid posture. A flicker of uncertainty passed across his face. What we're suggesting, Rivera continued, isn't the dismantling of the tribunal, it's its renewal. A system that preserves stability while embracing progress. Isn't that worth exploring? Before Voss could reply, a commotion near the chamber entrance drew every gaze. A new group had entered, regal, deliberate, clearly diplomatic. At their head stood a tall, silver-skinned Valoran, their metallic complexion gleaming beneath the tribunal lights. The delegation from the Outer Rim Coalition, the Valoran announced in resonant tones, requests permission to address the tribunal. Voss blinked in disbelief. The Outer Rim Coalition? They rarely spoke in full sessions, let alone during disciplinary proceedings. This is highly irregular, Voss objected. We are in the midst of a proceeding that directly affects coalition interests, the Valoran interjected. Under Article 87 of Tribunal Procedural Code, affected parties may present relevant testimony. I almost laughed aloud again. The humans had come armed not only with arguments, but with allies who knew the rules. After a tense moment of whispered consultation among the High Councillors, Voss gave a curt nod. You may present your position. Briefly. The Valorans stepped forward, positioning themselves beside Rivera with quiet, dignified solidarity. Thank you, Chancellor. The Coalition wishes to formally inform the Tribunal that, as of this morning, we have entered into a mutual development agreement with Earth. Gasps erupted across the chamber. I nearly dropped my recorder. 23 Coalition worlds face imminent environmental collapse, the Valoran continued. A direct result of mineral extraction operations carried out under Tribunal-approved licenses. For 15 years, we have petitioned this body for emergency technological assistance. And for 15 years, we've been told the solutions are under review. Their silver skin shimmered subtly with emotion. Earth has offered immediate assistance, advanced remediation technologies that your own scientists have confirmed could save billions. We have accepted. The agreement is in effect. You cannot forge independent agreements during an open proceeding. Voss exploded, every limb taut with fury. Actually, Rivera said, raising a finger, there's no rule against it. We checked as well, the Valoran added. thoroughly. And we now notify the tribunal that any sanctions against Earth will be treated as sanctions against all coalition member worlds, under our mutual defense provisions. And then I saw it, the brilliance of the strategy, the full scale of it. Earth hadn't come here merely to defend itself. It had come to redraw the board, to build alliances beneath the tribunal's very nose. Before the chamber could even process that revelation, a second commotion rose at the doors. A new delegation entered, this time led by the unmistakable garb of Proximian trade magnates. The Proxima Commercial Confederation requests recognition, said their lead representative. Voss sighed audibly. This is becoming absurd, he muttered. But again, he nodded permission. The Confederation, the Proximian said, has signed exclusive licensing agreements with Earth for advanced communication protocols. Should the tribunal proceed with sanctions, we will regard them as economic aggression. And then, one by one, they stood. The Rigelian Science Cooperative, the Tai-Chin Agricultural Worlds, the Dend Medical Consortium. Each had entered into agreements with Earth. None had broken a single written tribunal law. Each pointed out that Earth's actions violated only tradition, not codified regulation. Through it all, Ambassador Rivera stood silently, serene, composed, unshakable. Chancellor Rivera stood with her hands clasped behind her back, her expression unreadable, except for the faintest curl at the corner of her mouth. She hadn't merely prepared for this confrontation. She had orchestrated it. Chancellor Voss glanced around the chamber, visibly unsettled by how quickly the tribunal's authority was unraveling. This proceeding will be suspended while the council evaluates these developments, he finally declared. Before he could retreat, Rivera stepped forward. May I suggest an alternative? She said, her tone calm, deliberate. One that preserves the dignity and purpose of the tribunal while acknowledging the new realities. Voss stared at her for a long moment. Proceed, he said at last. The tribunal, Rivera began, transforms this disciplinary hearing into a collaborative summit. Earth will withdraw its jurisdictional challenge. In return, the tribunal establishes a reform commission, tasked with updating regulations for a modern era. Equal representation, traditional powers and developing worlds. She gestured toward the still hovering hologram of Earth's innovation hub. Let this be the Commission's first project. A symbol of a new tribunal, one that balances stability with progress. The chamber fell silent. Chancellor Voss's Malthurian eyes blinked in a sequence I hadn't seen before, processing, calculating. 1,000 political equations unraveling in real time. And if we refuse? He asked finally. Rivera's posture remained respectful, but her voice rang with quiet power. Then Earth and its partners will proceed independently. We do not wish to challenge the tribunal's existence, Chancellor, but we will not be shackled by outdated rules that jeopardize our shared future. Voss was still for what felt like an eternity. Then, slowly, his upper arms rose in the ancient Malthurian gesture of compromise, palms upward, fingers splayed. The tribunal will recess for 24 hours, he announced. During that time, preliminary discussions on the Reform Commission will commence. His gaze fixed on Rivera. This is not acceptance, Ambassador. It is consideration. Rivera bowed. Consideration is all we ask, Chancellor. Thank you. As the chamber emptied, delegates broke into clusters of excited conversation. I approached Rivera. You planned this from the beginning, I said. It wasn't a question. We explored possibilities, she replied, measured. Humans are good at that. You could have complied with tribunal regulations. Why risk confrontation? She looked at me for a moment, then asked, have you ever seen a river, Chronicler Vextelen? Not the artificial channels on stations, an actual river, on a living world. I nodded. Yes, on several planets. When a river meets an obstacle, it doesn't stop. It finds a new path, around, through, or sometimes it rises above, but it always moves forward. She smiled. Humanity is like that river. We don't seek to wash away the foundations of galactic civilization, but we won't stop our momentum. And the tribunal? I asked. It can be the banks that guide the river, she said, or the dam that breaks when the pressure grows too great. She shrugged. The choice was always theirs. She turned and walked toward the Outer Rim Coalition's delegation, already in discussion. I made my final notation in the official record. On this day, the balance of galactic power shifted, not through weapons, but through words and alliances. The human word for this, I'm told, is checkmate. 24 hours later, when the tribunal reconvened, Chancellor Voss announced the formation of the Reform Commission. Ambassador Rivera would serve as its co-chair. The sanctions against Earth were quietly forgotten. Some called it the greatest diplomatic victory in galactic history. Others, the beginning of human domination. As for me, I recorded the facts. But in private, I began studying human innovation strategies. After 12,000 years chronicling history, I found myself, for the first time in centuries, curious about the future. The future, it seemed, would be shaped by the river that was humanity, always flowing forward, always carving new paths through the stars. And I, for one, was eager to see where that river would go next.